Hello, 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 and welcome to Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 2020. Today we are talking about my complicated relationship with Shona. Very, very complicated. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my videos, and big like thumbs up on the videos that you enjoy, and I will continue to make more of those. And comment in the section below, and I will do my best to respond to you as soon as I possibly can. So today we are talking about my very complicated relationship with Shona. Now, a little bit of background. I am Zimbabwean. Yes, I was born and bred in Zimbabwe, and I was actually taught Shona growing up. And I do speak it, I do understand it, but I have a very, very complicated love-hate relationship with it. I think it probably, by the way, feel free to ask me anything. Stop me and ask me anything if anything resonates with you. I think my complicated relationship with Shona probably started when I was really, really young, as all these complicated things do. Now, when I was a kid, I was very, very passionate about books. Like the age of 3, 4, my grandfather used to read with me. That is like one of my biggest memories of my grandfather. He was absolutely amazing. He was brilliant. And we would spend hours and hours and hours just reading and talking about the Bible, reading other books of literature, reading history books, geography books, anything we could read. We just spent loads of time just reading all of my childhood while he was still alive. We were like that. We were seriously, seriously close. And of course, most of these books, unfortunately, were also in English. So I became quite good at reading English to start with. And then, of course, there was the complicated issue that we would then, the Bible would be in Shona. So I would be asked to read the Bible at the end of every day when it comes to, okay, this is nighttime, and we have a little prayer before we go to bed. I would be asked to read the Bible. But whenever I read the Bible, I would read with an accent. So people always had this thing like, oh, okay, so it's like whenever I read, people would say that I didn't sound like I was Shona. They were like, you're speaking with an accent. And I get laughed at. All the kids, because you're like Kumosha, people really take the mick out of you. And so whenever you used to go to the rural areas, people would absolutely take the mick out of you. And they would laugh at me. So I grew up with this complex, even from as early as like 3, 4. I knew that I sounded different, and it wasn't my fault. I wasn't trying to sound different. As far as my brain has always been concerned, even until now, when I hear my voice in my head and I'm speaking in Shona, I sound more Shona than I do when I open my mouth. I can probably do most of this thing in Shona, but I'm not sure, if everyone who listens to this or watches my videos is actually Zimbabwean or not. Actually, if you want me to do my videos in China, I did If I Speak in English, This Video Ends, which was amazingly popular. And oh my God, that was so hard because that was completely in Shona. So if you want me to do my videos in Shona, just comment below, Shona only, and I will make sure that I speak in Shona only. I'll try. But anyway, so I came from like very early on being asked to read the Bible in Shona. I mean, completely, it was very difficult for me to actually speak it. And I knew what I wanted to say in Shona, and I would say it, but apparently I would speak with like an awful accent. And, you sort of grow up then thinking that something about you isn't quite right, because every time that you open your mouth, everyone is just like, ah! Laughing at you. And then you grow up, and like back home, it was very, very important that the girl child is taught how to look after the house, look after the family, stuff like that. So we would be trained in all these different things. And even like, going kumusha and having kwenda kumunda, so you'd have to go to till the land. People would laugh at you because you were too slow tilling the land. When you washed the dishes, it's like, people were like, you're not putting any effort into it. And some of the disses that you'd hear was like, hey, my porridge is basically you're doing weak, useless things, like you're weak like porridge, basically. So those were like the things that I would hear growing up. And I think I got to like a turning point when I was probably, I don't know, about 10 years old. And, you sort of get to like 10 years and you're like, I'm grown now. Because at that time, I thought I had all the answers because, I developed early. So I had my little boobies out and everything. And I was thinking I'm a grown woman. I was like, I know what I want to do in my life. And it just got to that point where I was like, you know what? Why am I actually even like bothering? if people, every time I open my mouth, people laugh at me. Every time I try to, have a Shona conversation, everyone's taking the mick out of me and telling me I'm saying this wrong. No, that's not the word for this. Oh, don't you know the word for that? And it's like, obviously, if I'm asking you, I don't know the word. And that's always been a big issue that I've had actually, generally with Shona, because there's not that many resources that you would find, in terms of books. I don't actually even do, was there actually even like a Shona dictionary when we were growing up? I don't actually remember seeing a Shona dictionary. I remember the stuff that we would be taught in school. I would remember the stuff that would be laid out by the teachers, and everything else was just dialogue. And I think a big part of my issue that I had, and probably still do have with Shona, is, when I went to school, my English teachers were very passionate because there was a whole wealth of knowledge. And of course, English is very well documented and it's come from like ages and ages as a written form. And it's been something that's been passed through the generations in a written form. Whereas Shona was word of mouth. A lot of things to do with Zimbabwe are just word of mouth, word of mouth. And while that's great, because then people get that dialogue going, and word of mouth is brilliant because it gets people talking, we're now moving further and further apart from each other. And you now have all these communities where people are existing and they're still Shona, but they can't actually speak the language. So a big problem I always had, and I still have with Shona, is the fact that I didn't have like a reference. I'm a book geek. I love books. I mean, if I showed you around our house right now, we've got like 3, 6, 10 shelves of books, just general reading books in this room alone. The other room is jam-packed with books. The other room upstairs is jam-packed with books. But what are all these books in? Not Shona. They are not in Shona. So Shona would be great for word of mouth and passing messages on in that sense. But when it came to people like me who enjoy being in books, most of my escapism would happen in English. Most of the dialogue that I would be having in school, we went to a school where the minute you walk past the front gate, you have to move to English. So you'd be in school speaking English, you come back home, you start watching TV and TV's in English. You have the odd dialogue with your parents and that's going to be in Shona. But, 9 times out of 10, you're probably speaking to them in English anyway. And they're just like, but they're still speaking to you in English anyway. So I grew up with that complex somehow in my mind that, there's no point actually speaking Shona. I'm trying to speak Shona and I'm trying to be like part of these Shona people, but everybody's always laughing at my accent. So, it's sad. At 10 years old, I developed a complex. My uncle, up until this day, calls me Miss I Don't Give a Damn. Because that came from when I was about 10 years old. I started to not give a damn. I was like, you know what? People can understand me anyway, even if I speak in English. So forget this Shona stuff, man. People are going to understand me. Everybody in this country speaks English. Yeah, everybody speaks Shona as well. But you know what? I can get by. Even like they would understand me even if I was speaking in English. So that's exactly how I rolled. So then, I roll through the next 8 odd years. Butters, me, my language, I don't care. I don't care who's listening. I'm not speaking to you in Shona. And that was the way that it was. And my granddad was great. He was fine with it. He was just like, whatever, just be happy with who you are. And my grandfather was like the most loving person on planet Earth. He never judged the fact that I couldn't speak in either language. And so then fast forward 8 years, and there's me acting all hoity-toity and high and mighty. And I was excited to come to the UK because I was like, oh, finally, I can be with people who don't care about this Shona language. Yeah, I'm Zimbabwean. But it's not that important for me to be like chitter in Shona. I'll do fine. I always knew I was going to end up in a country where Shona was not that big a deal anyway. And it wasn't that I didn't like being Shona. I really liked being Shona. I have no issue with being Shona or being Zimbabwean at all. But it was just, it just kind of felt like, well, if I can't get it right and no one's trying to teach me how to get it right, no one's trying to teach me, even how to fake the accent if it's about my accent sounds strange. No one was trying to teach me how to fake that accent. No one's trying to actually just have a dialogue with me and not tell me off about how awful I sounded all the time. So all of that was going on in my mind. And then I came to the UK, as you do. And I was just like, oh my God, this is where I'm at, blah, blah, blah. And the first thing that hits you when you come to this country, man, is, and you take it for granted in Zimbabwe. I went to interracial schools. So there were like multi-racial, I don't know what you call it, but there were loads of different races in the schools that I went to. And, you know, in those schools, yes, there were, black, white, mixed race, Asian, all denominations, all sorts of different people there. In those schools, there were loads of different people. But you come out of school, and as soon as you walk past, the front gate, you're back in like, Black City. There were a lot of black people. So I don't know what it was when we were growing up. It was like 70, probably even 90% of the population was black. And a strange thing happens in your mind. You just assume that this is how the world is. You watch TV, and most of the TV that we watched was like American TV. So, there were some white TV programs, but, on the whole, we'd watch like, things with black people in them. So you just assume that you're going to like step out into the big wide world and there's going to be like a majority of black people. But you come to the UK and you realize, oh my God. Number one, there's not that many black people. And number two, those black people aren't even Zimbabwean. One of the first things that I did when I first came to this country, so I came and I had like 3 odd months where I was working and I was waiting to start uni. And in those 3 months, I went and I worked in industry. So I was like in Danda, lifting steel bins and everything. So that was a huge shock to me because I'd come from the expectation that I would just go to sleep, wake up, and there would be food on the table. I was young. I was like stupid young. I turned 18 in this country. So I came from that to having to actually work for a living. But also, I came from that to suddenly finding that, oh my God, this place that I thought was going to be brilliant, I'm actually a minority. And if I don't find a way to stand out, I'm just going to like melt into people who just be like, oh yeah, you're like British, black British. I couldn't understand the Jamaicans. I was in the West Country, black country, West Country, black country. I was in the black country. I couldn't understand anybody. Most of the Jamaicans that I was working with, it's like, they were like shouting commands and stuff at me. And I'm just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Please, can you like speak in an accent I understand? Or like slow down enough so I understand what's going on. At that point, I thought to myself, oh my God, I have to find my people. I became very excited again about being Zimbabwean. Because now all of a sudden, it wasn't about me versus all of these other Zimbabweans where I don't fit in. We were now all just black Zimbabwean people in the diaspora, just trying to make a living. We were there in Wolverhampton, rocking our lives for like 3 odd months. I started to actually seek out Zimbabwean people. And a lot of them didn't even think I was Zimbabwean. And yeah, there was some teething issues with that. Again, some people thought that. And believe me, you might think I'm speaking with an accent now. But when I first came to this country, I would speak very deliberately because that was the way that we were taught. And we were taught that you had to speak a certain way. So I sounded very much like I was the queen. I was very precise and I was very slow with how I spoke because that was how I had been taught. I've picked up all of these accents and things along the way, and I still mess around with all these different accents. But so I came with that kind of accent, and I was immediately, like a sore thumb amongst the other black people. So I went and I started finding my Zimbabweans. Please, African people, you are my African people. I started trying to have dialogues with them. And I started at that point at 18 years old, trying to fake a Shona accent. Do you know how hard that is? To have grown up Zimbabwean and all of a sudden be trying to fake being Zimbabwean. That was like, it was deep. But somehow I managed because, okay, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to say something in Shona now. So, for example, if I was going to be like rolling with my Zimbabwean people, I come down to the hoods. Ndave muribo. Ndiyo, hayi. Tinongonyepedzera. Tiri kumashift mufungeni. So I was like picking up all these little like slangs and things that people used to sort of say. I've obviously lost all the slangs because all my slang is now old and irrelevant. But so then I started to have to fake the Zimbabwean accent, which is so sad. At 18 years old, having to fake a Zimbabwean accent. And then, I started to learn. So a lot of my actually learning Shona and becoming passionate about Shona didn't happen in school. In school, I was just like, I'm just going to look the other way. I will just pick up the basic things that I need to pass these O levels and get the heck out of here. That's all I need. As long as I can write down what you guys are asking me, I don't care about your language. I'm going to go to a place where I can speak English and no one cares how I sound because I will sound okay. So all of a sudden, I'm now in this country where my English actually sets me aside from other people. Other people are sitting there looking at me thinking, you're fancy with yourself. Oh, if you're so rich, darling, what are you doing working in the industry? I had to find my people. I had to clear to my people. So then I started speaking Shona again. And I actually started learning Shona at 18. I became a bit more fluent in Shona, but still, even like now, if I, once I start to speak, once I get comfortable, the accent thing comes back in again. And yeah, then we sort of like fast forwarded, went through like a few years of like trying to get into being Zimbabwean and realizing that because I missed that whole huge chunk of my childhood, I wasn't really Zimbabwean. I mean, it's like, I'll go to like Zimbabwean things and everything and I'll rave and like party and whatever with people. But I always go to those things and I just kind of think, you know what? This really, it's not really me. A part of me really is a part of this community. It really is. But a part of me still just kind of thinks like any minute now, y'all people are gonna like turn around and start saying, oh, Masarad, Matanga Manj, Amnyari, oh no, not just one Zimbabwe, one, I was like, oh, okay. A part of me actually still feels like that is the truth. Even now, all of this time later, a part of me still feels like that. But I love being around my Zimbabwean people. And, then I think I probably got to about the age of 30. And I was doing more and more with my life. I actually was probably about 25 odd. I was doing more and more of my life. I was traveling loads more. I was going to all these different countries. And, when you go to all these countries, and, people ask you, so you're from, where you're from? And in these countries, when you say, say you go to Spain or Portugal or whatever, and you say, oh, I'm from England. Already they start to have like this picture of you, like you're hard drinking, fast living and loose. So it became beneficial to be Zimbabwean because nobody knows what the hell Zimbabwe is. In most places where you go. I think one of the strangest places, where did I go? Oh God, where did I go? I went to Serbia. Yes, I went to Serbia because it's a place to go. It's a place. And I wanted to see what Serbia was and why everyone, always makes such a fuss about Serbia. And I was like, it's just a country. I want to see for myself. So I went to Serbia. And the guy said I was the first Zimbabwean that he had ever seen as I was coming through customs. And you go through passport and immigration control. He's like, Zimbabwe? Is he Zimbabwe? I'm like, yes, Zimbabwe. He's like, oh, where's that country? I was like, it's in Africa, where South Africa is. Oh yeah, South Africa. And I was like, yes, it's just above South Africa. Oh, and that was exactly how it was, all through Serbia. I was rolling through Serbia, doing my little thing, doing my little tourist thing. And it was just fascinating to everyone that I was Zimbabwean. And I would crack out a few Shona statements as well, just to like prove that I was authentic. I had that brand to me. So then, from like 25 odd, it became like a little novelty thing to be Zimbabwean. I'm Zimbabwean, I speak a different language. You see, yes, I know I sound very, very English, but no, I'm actually from Africa. Yeah, I'm from Africa. You should go to Africa. I'd be like to Thailand and people would be like, oh my God, I really want to go to Africa because you make Africa seem so nice. They have like all the Nigerians and stuff who come over there and they're like, you're very different. You're not like all these people we see around here. Very different. Zimbabwe. And I'm like, yeah, man, Zimbabwe. Walking around with my own little ambassador. But, then it became like really, in my mind anyway, quite sexy to be Zimbabwean. To have this little badge that you wear, and you're like, I'm from Zimbabwe. Yes, Zimbabwe's amazing, it's pretty. You should go there sometime. And wearing that as like a little badge then brought a little bit, of personal pride, I think, to me in being Zimbabwean. And it also became something that was different about me. It made me feel kind of special. Let's put it that way. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now with Shona, is that I've stopped wanting to be Zimbabwean, wanting to be Shona, so I can be amongst Zimbabweans, so I can be accepted amongst Zimbabweans. I love my Zimbabwean people. I have a huge family. My family is just huge. My extended family is brilliant. And we are just that close. So because I have such a huge extended family, a part of me is actually very much at peace with the fact that on some level, I know that I'll never really completely gel with, Zimbabweans. Like I go to Zimbabwe and some of the ways are like just strange to me. I'm like, what? I've got to do what? Oh my God, I'm not going to play this game. Please, my fighting thing starts to come back on. But, part of me is at peace with the fact that there's certain things I will never get about being Zimbabwean. But a part of me is also like, you know what? I am so proud that I'm Zimbabwean and I'm Shona. I'm proud that I have this huge heritage that has been passed down in word of mouth. So a lot of it is, subject to interpretation. But there is also documentation. And then coming out of my personal pride and my personal joy with being me and all the complicated bits that are me, and having my kids and realizing, you know what, I actually want to pass on Shona to them. If I pass on nothing else about my country, let them at least be able to understand and speak my language. Let us at least be able to sit down, crack a joke about people as they're rolling past in Shona, and they will get it. And, at least have conversations with all the rallies back home. And they're actually able to understand how to say certain things. So, how you act in Zimbabwe, all of that kind of stuff. So to be able to pass that on, I found that even more recently, I started to act more Zimbabwean. My husband is like, you know, more into Africa than even I was. I mean, I met this dude and he'd in his life never met a Zimbabwean person before. But he was there, he had all of an Atuku mix. He has like all the different albums from Tupanam Kanya, all of these, and Simon Chimbetu. He had all of this music. He didn't understand what the hell they were about, but it was like, they're just really nice. I mean, the beats are just really nice, aren't they? And I'm like, yeah, boy, they are nice. So then I started to, one of his favorite songs was Toze Zababa, Toze Zababa. And I'm like, you do know that this is a song about domestic violence, don't you? It's like, no! I'm like, well, yeah. So then I interpreted it to him that, this dude, every time he gets lean, he comes home and bashes up his wife, and all the kids are now afraid of him. I was like, I actually really used to like this song. So now we're in a situation where I'm teaching my husband Shona and it's fun. I'm teaching my kids Shona and it's fun. And this thing that I've been looking for, this getting back in touch with my language, was sitting, staring at me right in the face all of these years as something that I needed to pass on to my kids. And because I've always found Shona so difficult, and I've always found it just so, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? Certain questions that some people don't even ask, that people like completely take for granted. I remember, just sort of asking, I can't remember which auntie of mine I asked. And I was like, well, what does Mutare mean? He was like, what over and I'm like, I'm just asking, what does the name Mutare actually mean? Because I can't understand what Mutare means. Okay, if not Mutare, then Kwekwe. What's Kwekwe then? Well, what's the meaning of that place? I mean, most places have meaning, so what's the meaning of that? And now we're going to start opening up all of those different silly dialogues. I actually wake up every single day and I'm just like, it's stupid, I know. But I wake up every single day and I'm just like so excited about Sarura Kids because I'm like, on so many levels, we are choosing to pass this on to our kids. So that's where Sarura Kids came from, Sarura, choose. So, kana tichisarura vana, we're passing on we're choosing to pass on our language to our children. That's going to be our heritage. And it's not just the language, because the language is part of who you are. It's part of a culture. It's part of a society. It's part of a history. It's part of an ongoing dialogue that people are having every single day. And it's within those structures that I want to just put my two little babies and hope that they sort of make it. They're going to have so many issues anyway as they grow up, because they're going to go back and they're going to be different colors to everyone. They're going to have different experiences. They're going to be too Scottish in some places. In some places they're not going to be Scottish enough. So at least give them one thing that they can say, well, this is part of who I am, and they have some kind of identity to it. So I love Shona. Shona is complicated. Shona is heartbreaking for me sometimes, but this Shona never loved me, but I'm going to love it unconditionally. So, yeah. And that is my complicated relationship with Shona, which is ongoing. It's evolving. If you guys have any questions, remember, comment section down below. Big thumbs up if you like this video, and I shall make some more Shona-related videos. Remember, if you want me to speak in Shona in future videos, just comment Shona only. The more Shona only comments I will get, the more likely it is that I will have to speak Shona in future videos. So I'm going to end this video in Shona. maita nekuonawo vhidhiyo yedu yanhasi. Mangwana handisi kukwanisa kuita live stream nokuti ndiri kuenda kuzvitoro. Ndikufanira kunotenga chikafu nekunotsvaga hembe dzevana nokuti mwana wangu akuti achikura, saka tiri kumbonomutsvagira hembe. Saka hatizivi kuti tinotsvaga kupi. Tiri panze zuva rose, kana kuti inini zvangu, kwete baba wacho, ini zvangu satende nevana. Pamwe mangwana ndiri panze ndiri ndoga zuva rose. Saka pamwe nguva yekuti ndiende online inozoti netsei, ndogona kuzononoka. Saka tichakonai musi wechishanu. Musi wechishanu handisati ndachizoti ndiri kuita topic yei. Asi ndichazvinyora, mukanotarisa discussion panel pachannel yangu pane pakanyorwa kunzi ndiri kuuya manguva yechannel yacho. Ndonyora futi discussion panel kuti ndiri kutaura topic yei. Saka ndichakonai musi wechishanu. Muva nezuva rakanaka. Kana kune zuva kwamuri, ingoburisai kana kamusoro panze. Mongozembera shana kana musingakwanisi kubuda panze. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. You guys have a wonderful day. You've been brilliant. Take care. Bye.